Good evening, Deb. Hi, Deb. Have we got you online? Technology is a wonderful thing. Hi, Deb. Oh, hi, Deb. Can you hear us? Hi, there you are.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, Deb. Can you hear the councillors at all?
Hi, sorry, I just realised I had the speaker off.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Could you please try to talk to Deb again, please?
Yeah, will do. Hi, Deb. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councillors. How are you?
They're all nodding. And Deb, thanks very much for giving us your time this evening. It's lovely to be with you, and even in a virtual sense. So, we'll try and move through this as quickly as we can, because we understand that you've got a particularly hectic schedule. But thanks again for joining us. So we've got a series of questions that we're keen to run through with you, and I'm going to hand over to Councillor Fryloff to kick off. Thanks, Ros.
Thank you, and hi, Deb. Deb, water security.
Hi, Ros.
How are you going, mate? Water security and reliability is a major issue for our region. What commitments can you make to the people of our region on urban water supply for Kingaroy and water security and liability for industry and agriculture?
Yeah, well, look, thank you very much, Ros. And I just first of all want to make sure, can everyone hear me okay? Because we need to, hopefully, I appreciate very much that I'm doing this externally, and I'm very pleased to be able to be getting around this great state of ours, campaigning, hopefully to have a premiere from Kingaroy. So I'm pretty excited. I actually wore my Suncorp socks today, and, because I knew I was doing this tonight. So, look, first of all, if I can say about water security, one of the key platforms of the LNP's campaign is based around water security. So if elected, of course, we have already announced that we'll work with Sunwater, Seqwater and local governments. We're going to undertake a statewide water asset unit audit, which is going to unlock the jobs that can be created in relation to key water infrastructure. What I want to see is a 30-year plan for water security across Queensland. We don't want to see the issues arising like we had earlier this year, where we've got some councils coming out and saying that they are running out of water. We need a plan for that water, and I know that that's really, really important as well. So we do need to work with those local councils, but also the water providers. Now, there's a couple of different issues when it comes to water, and I know you've asked about urban water, Ros, and I'll certainly get to that. As previously discussed with council, I'm well aware of the issue in relation to urban water supply, and I think it is very important that there is a plan about what the future means and where you're going to get that security of that water for. But I'm also well aware of major industries in our region, such as Swickers, for example, who need more water security. So, of course, without a doubt, we need to unlock that natural resource locally, not just for the urban water supply, but we also need to have a good hard look at what we're going to do around water for irrigators, of which I've been working on with a group of irrigators down there for quite some time. If we can ease up some water from maybe down south for those irrigators in Blackbutt, we will provide with more water coming through for urban water security.
Thank you, Deb.
Thanks, Deb. We'll now hand over to Councillor Jones.
Hey, Deb, how are you?
I'm going really well.
That's good. Couple of questions for you, and we've discussed this in depth over a long period of time. Obviously, something that's close to my heart, the Bunion Mountains Road. It's a major. It leads up to a major tourist attraction, one of the hot spots for tourism in the southeast corner. I know you've come out in the past and fully supporting the sealing of the remainder 2.4 kilometres up to the Bunions all the way. So I guess it's an expected cost of around about $3.5 million. Firstly, what sort of a commitment will you continue to give, or can you give if elected? And the other thing I want to just touch on briefly is the Works for Queensland, and you and I have had discussions on this in the past, and you know how I feel it's been an absolute saviour for our particular council, and talking to regional councils across Queensland, they say the same. So I guess if you're elected as Premier on the 31st of October, will you keep the level of funding that is currently there for Works for Queensland, and is there anything in your, I guess, election promises and what's going to be in your future budgetary discussions moving forward? Is there anything in there that would affect the level of the funding for Works for Queensland in the future, or will you keep it at the same and possibly increase it?
Yeah. Well, I'll start on that one, Spud, because it's such a contentious issue, because we all know that councils love a grant and they love a bit of cash. But without a doubt, look, an LNP government has already committed, and we've committed it for the last election, and we've maintained that to keep Works for Queensland. My understanding is that the LGAQ's action plan hasn't been agreed to by the current government. In actual fact, during COVID, it was the LNP that agreed to the LGAQ's then plan in relation to monies for councils, and that's not been agreed to by the current Labor government. But maybe your mayor has more of an understanding than me on that. But I can commit to you that we will be maintaining Works for Queensland. We can commit to that. And I think that given our past record of when we're in government last for 2 years and 10 months, the South Burnett Regional Council was extraordinarily fortunate to get over, and I need to clarify the figures, but it was something around $20-odd million, I understand, from our then Royalties for Regions program. So I think you'll find that monies that have flown into the South Burnett from state government, irrespective of who's in there, is actually quite buoyant. And I know the water treatment plant, and I was very pleased to go there for the opening of that, that came out of the predecessor essentially to Works for Queensland. So thanks to Jeff Seeney for getting those projects up. So I've committed to that, but I really want to talk about roads, because I think roads are really important to talk about. Now this week we've had the very close call for this school bus from Tangerine State School. Now, I was very upset about that. I've always been very concerned about the Tangerine Bridge. Those kids, and I've spoken to some of the parents, it's deeply concerning to me that we nearly had a near miss, of a school bus full of kids, Spud. And I know you've been working really hard with Dean Cullen and the school about this issue, so that has highlighted that for me. We had for those of you who don't know, we had a semi-trailer meet with a bus full of kids, and I have no idea how that bus didn't go off. That road, that bridge doesn't even have guardrails, so that has highlighted that for me. I think we need to put that on the top of our fighting for list. Just as I have, Spud, got the Maidenmore Bunion Mountains Road, you know that I've been talking about that for a very long time. We've got to get it done. But as well, the Baillie Road, the Mundabra-Geelong Road, and then, of course, it's in the Gympie region, but it is important because a lot of our people use it. The Kilkeevan-Tansey Road is a very important connector road for us into the South Burnett. And we do know, whether you like the Labor government or not, they're completely bloody useless when it comes to road funding. We've seen the Auditor General's report say billions of dollars for backlog maintenance for regional roads, and that's just not good enough. So, look, I'm out there advocating, all the time about regional road funding. Every death is one death too many, and that's exactly why we've got to listen to that Auditor General, who has actually said, and it's in report number 4, actually said the renewal of our existing network continues to be underfunded. And this has resulted in risks to the sustainability of our transport network. So, I mean, we've got to do something about it. So, Spud, thank you for your advocacy in relation to roads. You do a great job there because you've got a heap of them. I know you do. And everyone wants their road graded, their bridge upgraded, and their roads upgraded, and we can't do them all. But I do definitely recall when we were in government for 2 years and 10 months, I delivered 4 overtaking lanes, much needed overtaking lanes, upgrade of roads, very vitally important that we maintain that and we start looking at some of those black spots. If we're looking at just domestic tourism, we must do something about the Bunny Mountains Road. So that's probably my commitment. I've gone on a bit, sorry, Spud, but I'm a bit passionate about roads this week. Always passionate about it, but that bus at Tangerine, it's just really got to me. I mean, I know those kids as I know you do, and it scared the hell out of them.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. Can I just say that you covered off being aware of the time, and other councillors asked the questions. You touched on all the roads. You mentioned all the roads that are so important to the South Burnett end. And also the fact that you mentioned the Tangerine near miss with the school bus the other day. I've got been doing a lot of work behind the scenes with that P&C, and yeah. So look, thanks very much for the answer.
And I know that you want me to not just rattle on, but what I'd really like to do is I'd really like our local road consultative committee to put that in as a priority. What concerns me deeply is we cannot wait for a death of a school, death or major injuries of school kids for it to be on the list. And I know we're in caretaker, but if the council can assist to work with me on trying to prioritise that in your road applications, I'd really appreciate it because it would really assist us as well. And possibly as time goes on, if we could get some some statements from whether the bus driver, because it's not the truckie's fault, at the end of the day. Not that I'm not a police officer, so I don't know, but it was bloody close.
You're 100% right, Deb, and every traffic advisory committee meeting that I chair, I raise that particular issue with the main roads and everybody else, and so for me to hear you say that, and if you're in government, that certainly means a lot to. It's not just the community of Maidenwell. That is a hell of a busy road, and the whole of the South Burnett use that to go through to Toowoomba. So it's certainly in need.
And I don't think there's anyone that is driven on that road that hasn't felt like they've had close to a near miss. I mean, we talk about the Cooya Bridge. And there's many single lane bridges, but I'd also encourage the local council, and I know I've written to you about this, I'm sure I have, or maybe just to the mayor, but I'd encourage the local council to as well apply to the federal government for the bridge upgrade fund. The Somerset Regional Council have been very successful in getting a program of bridge upgrades because that's an old wooden bridge, my understanding. I could be wrong, but I think it's an old wooden bridge. Yep. And if it is, you may be eligible under the federal government funding. But I appreciate I should move on. Thank you.
No, you're 100% right, Deb, and I've spoken to David Littleproud in regards to that, and he told me exactly the same. So thanks very much for your answers, and much appreciated, and that was good news to hear. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Deb. Thanks, Councillor Jones. We'll now move on to Councillor Potter.
Hi, Deb. How are you?
Good, Councillor Potter.
Now, my question is with regards to mental health and how mental health is an increasing issue across our region. And I just want to know what commitment you can make to delivering improved services and funding for mental health services across the Burnett. And secondary to that also is homelessness is often ignored by our state politicians, and yet because this is because of their mental health issues and other factors, they're homeless, and it's actually on the rise in our region. And I'm just curious as to how you would look to address both issues. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Potter, and I know that you have been a tireless advocate in this space, and I thank you for your work. and in the space of mental health. As you know, it is also an issue that is very close to my heart, and one of which I've been on the record many times, of saying one of the reasons that I got into politics was making sure that the South Burnett had better access to mental health services. It's been a commitment of mine since I've entered politics, and that's why I was really pleased to continue working and starting with the South Burnett Suicide Prevention Group to make sure that we have got a direction for people to know where to go to access help. There are incredible people in the South Burnett who are providing wonderful, wonderful support services, but they need help. They certainly do need help. The South Burnett's figures in and around suicides and mental health is very high. And it's on the increase. And I would suggest to you that given COVID, the figures aren't coming out at the moment, but my understanding is that those figures are quite distressing. And we know that there are, unfortunately, the need for more health services. Look, I've been working with a group, and I know, Danita, you know about this, but I've been working with the federal member, David Littleproud, in relation to Head Start, because I think one of the issues that we need to address is the mental health of our younger people as well in the region, and access to jobs. Just excuse me, I apologise. I'm going to shut the door because it's very loud. I'm sorry. I'm actually in Townsville and there's a hooning problem at the moment, so they're going up and down the streets. But in relation to mental health, I just want to say a couple of things. There are a couple of major issues that need addressing, and the first thing that I believe needs really addressing is the need to make sure we work with the federal government to make sure we've got enough support services in and around. That's always very important and top of mind. We need to make sure that the public health system has enough mental health workers or nurses to be able to support the people who are seeking their help. But I would also say we also need to make sure that people have jobs. And if you have a job, you usually have an ability to have a support network around you through that job. You have a pay packet coming in, and we know the best way, and I don't mean to put these two together at all, but when you're talking about homelessness, it's the best way to get people out of a situation of homelessness, if they wish to be out of that, is to get them a job. I've also got a major plan to tackle the drug problems such as ice. Now, we know that is a massive issue in the South Burnett. And I toured right through the region and through Queensland talking about the scourge of ice in our regional communities, and we've got to do something about it. I will continue to lobby in relation to support services, make sure we've got enough mental health services, make sure our schools have enough support. I'm advocating right now for a full-time paediatrician, and I've announced it, I should say, a full-time paediatrician for the South Burnett. Now, our school kids need help. They need help from a young age, and when I visit some of our small schools, and I don't want to name them, but there's a couple of one-teacher schools that I've visited where those teachers are at their wits' end because the kids in those schools are not getting access to paediatricians. They're not getting access to speech therapists. And that is why we need to make sure that we've got that support service right there in the South Burnett. Now, mental health is not just, we have definitely got the awareness. We need to continue with our awareness campaign. But to assist people and to assist an area like the South Burnett in relation to mental health, we need to make sure that people have got jobs, they've got support services around them, and that when their kids need help at school, they're actually going to get that help. So, look, I know it's a major issue, Danita. And I know that, I should say, Councillor Potter, I apologise. It is a major issue, and it's one that's close to all of our hearts, and I thank everyone of the council, because I know you've worked over the years to try to assist the South Burnett. We know we have too many suicides. We know our police officers and our nurses at the hospital probably don't get enough support from the system. and they're still transporting a number of those patients out of the South Burnett. I'm disappointed that the South Burnett, the new hospital, doesn't have enough beds. It's got less beds than our previous hospital. It doesn't. The Labor government haven't committed to a paediatrician. The Labor government haven't committed to enough mental health services. I'm still fighting for a safe room in our hospital. The Labor government haven't committed to that. It's not good enough to have a picture and pretend that you're supporting the South Burnett if you're the Labor government. What you need to do is actually understand the South Burnett, and that's exactly what I intend to do. So, look, I'm a bit passionate about it, Danita, but you know I've been a massive supporter of the South Burnett Suicide Prevention Group and a lot of other groups around. But I just want to touch on homelessness, because there is a major growing homelessness issue in our region. In the last 5 years, our property and construction sector has been completely smashed by the new taxes that have been implemented by the Labor government. So that means less developers and people are building homes that are affordable for people to rent. And that's why I've already committed to introduce a discount of 75% in relation to the land tax to encourage that private sector to get back into the building to rent programs. We know that people can't afford to buy necessarily, but they can afford hopefully to rent. So that's why I think it is really important that we support people to get into those types of programs. But it is concerning to me, Councillor Potter, that homelessness is an increasing trend, and that happens when you've got thousands and thousands of people. 22,000 people in Queensland are on the public housing wait list under the current government.
Thank you, Deb. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Deb. My question is, enhancing internet connectivity across our region has the potential to serve as a significant economic enabler. Our council is currently working on options for accessing the state's network through QCN fibre to Toorong to deliver future high-speed connectivity to the CBD of Kingaroy as a regional hub. To what extent will you support such in terms of advocacy and funding?
Oh, look, 100%, and thank you for raising it, Councillor Shoemaker. It's because it's so important. No matter where we go in and around our region, there are hotspots and issues in relation to connectivity. And nothing highlighted that more for me than in the middle of the COVID, in the COVID shutdown. When I worked with local community who were trying to educate their kids from home, because not only do many of our local community not have the resources to have a computer to be able to educate their kids at home, but they don't have connectivity. And if they do have connectivity, it drops out and it's just not good enough to educate kids at home. So that highlighted that very much for me. There was a huge number of kids from the Kingaroy State School, the State High, from the Mergen State High, kids that were in their last year of school, wanting to get ahead to get a job, and they were unable to do that study. And it was, I really had very successful, well, not successful necessarily, because the poor buggers had to continue working with pen and paper, but with Ashley Rodiger, the principal of Kingaroy State High, around that issue to try to advocate to get them enough funding in their school budget to print the papers. But that's another issue. Look, I'm very supportive of the program, Kirsty. I think it is very, we need to do it. We need to make sure that we have good connectivity. But what I would suggest to you is, until we know what it's going to cost, it would be, I would need to know what it cost. I've not seen any costing for that program. But what I do know is that, we will, and LNP government will work with those internet service providers to connect parts of the state-owned, which is, I think, what you're talking about. And I want to make sure I've got that completely right, Kirsty. But I'm talking about the optical fibre network. So we've already announced that the state government's optical fibre network, will make sure that we're getting that locked into the NBN in those key regional areas. So I'm assuming that is what you're talking about there. And if it is, we've definitely got my support. But when it comes to a dollar figure, we'll have to have a chat about that.
Yeah, completely understand. That's exactly what we're talking about. There's a great opportunity for our region to really harness the existing sort of, I guess, connectivity that Toorong Power Station has that in our region, and we're looking to, I guess, build from that and connect it to the CBD of Kingaroy as part of the Kingaroy Transformation Project to really enhance the opportunities for our regional centre.
Well, and I really support that. So well done to you guys for advocating for it, because I think it is important. The other thing that COVID has highlighted for many of our regional communities has been the need for better connectivity to keep their businesses going. And I was very pleased to see many local South Burnett businesses go online and sell their products. But if we want to sell what we've got in the South Burnett, which we have incredible product to the world, we need to be able to have high-speed, reliable internet connection. So if that is what which I know through your advocacy document, what the South Burnett Regional Council is advocating for, I would be very supportive of that. And of course, you will then end up with other towns saying, what about me? And I think we'll just end up making sure that we start ticking the boxes, because it's a very good program.
Thanks, Deb. Councillor Duff.
Hi, Deb. It's Kathy here. The Bundubba-Jurong Road, I know you've already mentioned it, but I just wanted to get a commitment, forms part of an important freight route for rural southern Queensland. Major capital works are required to complete the final stage of the road within the South Burnett region. The expected cost of such is around $20 million. And just want to know, to what extent will you provide a commitment to supporting the funding of this project?
Yeah, look, thanks, Kathy. And as you know, I've been wanting to work with the road group that has been working with the Labor government in relation to that project. I was very disappointed to see funding go to an area that wasn't as dangerous as other areas on it. But that's what happens when someone from George Street makes a decision because they want to quickly make an announcement and they don't talk to locals. I think that's what it's very important that we make sure that locals have a say, which is why I'm really excited to be able to get to government, and so I can work with local groups such as yours, Kathy, to make sure that we get the road upgrades in the right places. Whilst every area, every centimetre of that road needs upgrading, surely to goodness we would have started on the single lane bit, where if you're coming towards a truck, it's bloody dangerous to get off. So, but anyhow, as that's a frustration of mine, it's an incompetence of the Palaszczuk Labor government, but that's what we've had for the last 5 years. But look, Kathy, as you know, we committed to the Mundubba Bridge. We've committed before to millions of dollars of upgrades in that road. We really want to get in. We want to work out what money the government have committed to that road, because I'd really like to see their paper, but unfortunately we don't have a budget. So there's been no budget. In fact, the Palaszczuk Labor government's the only budget in the nation not to have a budget. It's bizarre. No budget, no planning, can't see what they're going to spend on roads. What we want to do is get a look at that, get a line of sight on what that funding is for the Mundubba-Jurong Road. I'm certainly fighting for it, and you know I'm in your corner, Kathy, with that one. But well done to you for constantly advocating for that upgrade.
Yeah, I think that the issue we've since discovered, or recently discovered, that that section hasn't even been designed. So it needs to be designed, obviously, before there's any sort of costing. So that's we're not very advanced there.
Yeah. Well, look. First of all, we've got to get. Yeah, and well, that's good to know. So that highlights to me we really need to make sure, and if they've not even done planning, that means we don't know the cost. So we need to make sure that we get that. But again, I plead with you guys, don't fall into the trap of a photo shoot with these guys. That's what happens. They take a photo and they go back to Brizzy and they think it's all done. But the people that are in the semi-trailers, the people that are in the four-wheel drives, the people that are in their caravans, and the people that are in their little Mazda i30s or Hyundai i30s, whatever they are, they're the people that are driving on those roads, that are taking their lives into their own hands. So I just, for one, I just, you know, let's, yeah. Sorry, it's just beyond frustrating because they announced it and the council stood beside them and said, isn't this wonderful? We've got a road. It's not been delivered. It hasn't even been planned. But we've got a press release saying it's going to be. So that's why I'm saying, Kathy, I want to see what they've got in their budget because I don't think they've got anything. I think you've been hoodwinked. Not you, but I think the council's been hoodwinked.
Yeah, well, I mean, there hasn't been any commitment on it. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, so we're just at that stage. So.
Well, yeah, well, we need to get the plans done, and we need to keep fighting for it. It's look, the Mundubba-Geelong Road is such an important feeder road for us. You know, we know that we've got to, and there's always the argument about why we can't get B doubles, of course, in. We know that argument. But this is one road that Cole Boyce, the member for Callide, and myself are really advocating, but we're lucky that we can do it because, Councillor Duff, we've got you and your road group that is also advocating for that same road. So at least we're all on the same page. And I think the Geelong community, in actual fact, for putting up with it for so long.
Yeah, no, thanks, Deb.
Councillor Henson.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Deb, everyone asks, but what are you having for dinner?
Well, I'm sitting here in what is getting an increasingly dark room by myself in Townsville. After this, I've got another phone hook up at 7, from 7 to 8. I don't have a fundraiser, so you'll be very well aware. But also, I don't know, hopefully I'll probably maybe, I'm really not sure, but I hope there's food, but hopefully probably chips, I'd say. It's not a healthy diet, I can tell you, at the moment.
No, and that question I should have stated that everyone asked, how were you? And we all knew you that you're very well. So, Deb, my question in relation to the agricultural sector, and as you know, I'm agricultural, I'm rural.
Yeah.
I could throw a blanket over this question because the South Burnett has so many, and it is a big rural area, as you're well aware.
Yeah.
This question could be thrown over every industry because every industry has the potential to expand well beyond what they are at the moment. So I'll in no shape or form pick one out intentionally, but that be the pork industry, because the pork industry in the South Burnett and Kingaroy is huge and it's seriously vital to our region and the economy in our region. How are you going to help protect this pork industry in the event of disease outbreak and at the same time help grow this sector and promote jobs and perhaps associated industry along the way?
Yeah, look, thanks, Councillor Henson, and it's really important. And you may have noticed at the beginning, I probably should have said I was going to have pork for dinner, but may have noticed at the beginning I wore my sun pork socks because, quite frankly, without the pork industry, the South Burnett wouldn't be the South Burnett that it is, and we actually need to be doing everything we can to bolster the industry, but also to make sure that we're supporting it to grow, which is why I was talking about the water infrastructure for major industry, but also major water infrastructure to make sure that we've got enough water for our pork producers as well. We all know that there's been a major issue in and around biosecurity for our agricultural industries, but no more so than the immediate concern that we have around the pork industry. I'm really pleased to announce that across Queensland, we will bolster the biosecurity Queensland by another 10 staff. Now that's a massive announcement because we must put more people back on the front line into the agricultural industry in the DPI, well, what was known as the DPI. It has been completely denuded by successive Labor governments. We know that we've got the Bunion Peterson Research Centre in Kingaroy. We must have people on the front line. I've been so gutted over so many stupid decisions of the Palaszczuk Labor government, but none more so than shutting down the frontline workers of the agricultural, and one was Kingaroy, you know, again, they left us out into dark. So I've announced 10 new biosecurity staff. We know that biosecurity is the last line of defence in relation to food security, but I would suggest to you none more so than in the pork industry. Pigs can only go one direction, and I know you know this, Spud, but they can only go in one direction. So whilst we're going to bolster the biosecurity and make sure we've got some good R&D back in there, and Tony Perrott, the local member for Gympie, well known to the South Burnett. Tony and I have been working on those biosecurity issues in and around the pork industry and the tick line issue, but also research and development, and we'll have more to say about that as the election goes along. Look, I fought and advocated for the farms to be not sold off by the Bligh government. Those two ag farms that are attached, owned by the state government, to the Bunion Peterson Research Centre there at Kingaroy. I fought to save them when they were going to be sold off by Anna Bligh. We maintained them and then put more people into that. So, you know, I'm naturally looking forward to bolster that as well. But the other thing I want to say is we've also said that we need to toughen up the laws in and around people who breach farm gate. So anyone that breaks into an abattoir or breaks into a feedlot or breaks into a high-intensive industry like the pork production industry, which is a growing of pigs, I mean, we've seen the damage that the protesters have done in and across the industry. We've seen that our pork producers, can be devastated by those protesters. So we will bring in severe penalties for those people, and I will never apologise for getting tough on making sure that we close down those protesters. But the other thing I can announce and I can talk about tonight, Scott, that I know that you'll be really pleased about, well, hopefully I'm guessing, but as you know, I'm a real supporter of the ag industry, you know, born and bred in the bush, and I am very loud and proud about being from regional Queensland. We've also set an ambitious goal of doubling the value of ag production by 2035. We want to double it from $18 billion in Queensland to $30 billion. And then we don't want to stop there. We want to say agriculture is the lifeblood of Queensland, and it can start in the South Burnett. And after that, we want to double it again to $60 billion by 2045. Now, importantly, we've got to understand how we can double food production in this great state of ours. We need water. Water means jobs, and that's why I'll be talking about the Burrell Weir and making sure that industries have different access to those water projects. We need to make it affordable. That's why I've announced anyone that is on a Sunwater irrigation will get an immediate, from the 1st of July 2021, under an LNP government, will take the Queensland Competition Authority's recommendations, and we will reduce the price of Sunwater irrigators by 20%. In fact, it's around 19.4%. That can be done. Queensland Competition Authority have told the current government to do it. They're not interested. So we need to make sure water, if available in irrigators, is affordable. But we also need to make sure the regulations are right, which is why we're going to bring back common sense laws around native vegetation. We need to give certainty to our farmers that if you are planning to farm for yourself and for your next generation, that the government isn't going to move the goalposts. And that is exactly why we're bringing back common sense landscape management laws. And I really want to thank all of the councillors who have been advocating for this as well. And I want to thank AgForce, who have backed in the LNP's plan. I want to thank QFF, who have backed in the LNP's plan, because it is important that we support the agricultural industry. And you know what, Scott, I actually think the South Burnett can be a bit more ambitious, and we can do a lot more. We can grow our pork industry, we can grow our beef industry, and we can make sure that our high-intensive crops like peanuts, Debosia, and other emerging crops can start right in the South Burnett. But it all goes around. Let's get the R&D, let's get those new products, and let's start testing and getting them in the ground. But I'm not sure if I've answered your question because I went on a bit of a tangent, Scott, but I'm pretty passionate about this space.
Thanks, Deb. Yes, like myself, we're all, and the rural sector's all in it together. We're all one, that's for sure, and they certainly feel as though they've been left hang out to dry over a period of time with some draconian rules and regulations. The rural sector's become as efficient as they can possibly be, and you are dead right. The rural sector in the South Burnett has the potential to, you know, twofold, threefold. We all know potential, and the diversification here is incredible. So, yeah, thanks, Deb. Appreciate your input.
And quite frankly, the agricultural industry around the South Burnett just want government to get out of the way and let them do what they do best. And that's stop piling on the rules and regulations, stop piling up all the stop gaps that happen all the time, whether it's in water, biosecurity, or even R&D and a bit of support. I mean, that's, you know, anyway, but thank you.
Thanks, Deb.
Well, thank you, Deb. I'll take last question now. Deb, we certainly would like to acknowledge and thank you for, on behalf of our council at least, a commitment this evening to continuing the very important Works for Queensland program, and your party for committing to maintain that level of funding to our regional councils. In addition to that, very pleasing to hear that we can expect to see a resourcing of our DPIs, biosecurity, and natural resource management staff. Deb, can we expect to see that out into the regions, the re-resourcing of those departments?
Well, Mr Mayor, thank you very much for having me on. Lucky for you, those departments are based in regional Queensland. And lucky for you, we've got the Sir Joh Bjelke-Petersen Research Centre based right in Kingaroy. It's just out across from the airport. And I know that it is important that we have those public servants in the right spot in regional Queensland.
Thank you. Also note that the LNP under your leadership has made a commitment to ensuring that people contracted to government are paid on time. What will you do for small business in our community and to help job growth and support our local economies? Have you got any ideas that we can look forward to?
Yeah, we've got a hell of a lot of ideas, and I'd really encourage you guys to go on. I'll send you all of our policy in relation to small business, because quite frankly, small business are the backbone of our community. They're the backbone, and I put farmers in as small business as well. But small business is the backbone. But how can government, state government, how can we support small business? Well, there's a couple of ways. We can make sure we pay them on time. If a small business is actually working with state government, and I'll give a great example. Under the Palaszczuk Labor government, if a local company contracts to Queensland Health, they don't have to get paid within 30 days. It's completely ludicrous. We announced several years ago that we would make sure that small businesses were paid within 20 days. Now, after about 12 months of us rabbiting on about it, the Labor government followed our lead. They followed the LNP's lead, but they excluded the Department of Health, which doesn't make sense to anyone, but anyway, that's what they do. So we know that we've got to pay small businesses on time. One thing that's also very important to me is infrastructure and the infrastructure spend. But Mr Mayor, what I think is important is that we support buy local, we support the contractors that could do the work locally, and that starts with procurement as well. So when we're looking at a major infrastructure project like the hospital, which thanks to Lawrence Springborg we were able to commit to and what we're able to do, I mean, that's a big thanks to the former LNP government. But unfortunately, the deliverers so far of that project have been the Labor government. I've had to advocate for a local paint shop to be able to sell paint to there. We've had to advocate on behalf of local tradies to get those contracts. So what I'd like to see, particularly in civil construction, I'd like to see a decoupling of the major road projects to ensure that our local businesses get a piece of the pie. Because if we want to grow regional Queensland, we've got to make sure that they have an ability to be able to do those contracts from regional Queensland.
Deb, thank you very much. We're very conscious of the fact that you've got another meeting at 7 o'clock. We really can't thank you enough for giving us your time this evening in light of your extremely busy schedule, and I'd like to call on councillors to give you a round of applause. Thank you very much. Deb,
thank you.
Can we also wish you the very best for the upcoming election? We'll be all watching closely and wishing you well.
And thank you. If I could, Mr Mayor, thank you very much for offering me this opportunity to respond to your advocacy plan. I was very pleased to see that the South Burnett Regional Council has an advocacy plan, and I know that my Shadow Minister, Anne Lay, has been engaging with the South Burnett Regional Council. I just also want to give this commitment to the South Burnett. I am very loud and proud of coming from the South Burnett and having raised my family in the South Burnett. Everywhere I go, I talk about people should spend their money and come and travel to the South Burnett. So whilst I appreciate your patience that I haven't been able to be there in person, and the fact that I may not be in town every single day, trust me, I take a piece of the South Burnett with me every single day. And I'm travelling at the moment with 15 media people from the state media, and I'm giving them South Burnett peanuts as we go around the state. So it's pretty exciting, I think, for the South Burnett to have an opportunity to have a second premier from the South Burnett. And if I could only hope to have that opportunity, I would be very blessed.